get started. All right, I think we're live. We are at Ferrari-Carano Winery in the library room upstairs at the Villa Fiore tasting room here in Dry Creek Valley, Sonoma. And I'm here with Sarah Quider, who is the executive winemaker at Ferrari-Carano and has been with Ferrari-Carano for well over a decade and had her first stint with Ferrari-Carano 20 years ago, starting in 1995. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all at home. I see that we have you tuned in. You can tweet us or chat us in the Ustream window, which will be a tweet, to let us know that you're seeing and hearing us okay. We have a very special presentation of 3 wines today that we think are really fantastic for winter, fall as well, which we're in right now, and keeping in mind that that's also when we have Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, lots of holiday parties, and food that you'll want to be pairing the wines with, gift occasions. Mm-hmm. So that's how we chose these wines. Yeah. I wanted to just say that if any of you tuned in to our FC Summer Reds tasting during the summer when we had associate winemaker Rebecca Dykey, we talked about how Rebecca was going to be running or participating in a triathlon, I think 2 days after the tasting took place. And Sarah, you did that as well.
Yes, we did the half Ironman, which was the Barb's race. And it was our first triathlon for both Rebecca and I. And we trained quite a few months for it, but it was a fabulous event and very hard, very challenging. It took me 7 hours and Rebecca 6.5, or 7 hours for her and 7.5 for me. And it was fun. It was, oh my God, it was such a great time.
Had you done, Ironman's pretty serious. Had you done anything like this before?
It was our very first triathlon. So, but we trained and we did a lot of running, a lot of swimming, a lot of biking, and but we never really put it all together in that distance. So, and you just do it. And you enjoyed it. It was amazing how the adrenaline kicks in and keeps it going to the end.
So you clearly wear a lot of hats. You have a huge role at Ferrari-Carano as the executive winemaker, making all of the whites at Ferrari-Carano hands-on and being instrumental overseeing the other winemakers at both Ferrari-Carano Winery for the Reds with Rebecca and Lazy Creek Vineyards, which is another small winery owned by Ferrari-Carano in Mendocino. Yeah. And then you're running, participating in triathlon, Ironmans in your off time, and you're a mom, 2 kids.
It's a lot of juggling, but I have a lot of energy, so I think I need to keep busy. And I love what I do, and I love my kids, and I feel like being active is good for just your mental, to relieve the stress, and it feels good, and I think it's a nice balance in life. So.
Ferrari-Carano is probably not a new name to anyone tuning in, but if it were, how do you introduce Ferrari-Carano to someone?
For me, I think that Ferrari-Carano is, the one thing I love about it is it's owned by Don and Rhonda Carano, and we're a family-owned winery in Dry Creek Valley in Hillsburg, California, and it's a beautiful winery that started in 1985, was our first release. And originally Don and Rhonda had come down, they own casinos in Reno, Nevada, and they came down to wine country in this area to go wine tasting to find wines for their restaurants. And fell in love with the area because it reminded them of Italy. And bought a little house, and it had 60 acres of Chardonnay on it. And so from that point, they started making Chardonnay in their garage, and it kind of has grown since that time with acquiring ranches and building, and it's grown from there. But it's still amazing to have a family-owned winery, and it's their passion, which trickles down to all of us. There's so many employees that love working for Don and Rhonda, and the heart and soul is about them. And so,
I think one of the most telling things to that end is the fact that you have been with Ferrari-Carano so long. Steve Domenichelli, who's a 4th-generation farmer, has been the vineyard manager for a long time as well. I'm not thinking
25 years.
Yeah.
26 now. Yeah.
Much of his life. And that's true, you'll find if you visit the winery, sort of from the top down, people come here and they make it their home and they make it their life's work.
Yeah.
You brought up Chardonnay, and I think that is a really perfect time to lead into our first wine, which is Ferrari-Carano. That's the wrong bottle. Ferrari-Carano Chardonnay. You have the 2012 vintage, which they're sort of in transition, headed toward the 2013 release right now. If you come to the winery, you'll taste the 2013 now. But through the holiday season, if you're shopping at retail stores, you're going to be seeing the 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So
in restaurants as well is the 12.
Right. So I'm going to get this open. You probably have yours open at home. And be sure to let us know what questions you have. We want to know what you want to know about the property, about the wines, the whole way through.
So a little bit about this wine. Our Reserve Chardonnay comes from Napa Reserve in the Napa area where the San Pablo Bay comes in. And it's a Chardonnay vineyard. It's 100% Chardonnay, and this wine is a single vineyard Chardonnay that we make. It is our oldest Chardonnay clone of vineyard that we have on our properties. It's 20 years old. It's a Winery lake selection of a clone of the Wente clone, and what that means is that it's a hens and chicks type of clone of grape cluster where it has small berries and big berries. And what I find in this vineyard is that there tends to be a little bit more variety of flavor profiles. When I'm tasting through it, like one berry tastes like lemons, the next one tastes like peach, the next one tastes like flowers. And so when it comes in and when you're deciding when to pick, all those aromas and flavors come in the wine, which I love. So,
do you know offhand how many acres of Chardonnay? You said there was 60 acres on their home property when they first bought the land, Don and Rhonda. Do you know how many acres you farm now?
Just on Chardonnay?
Yeah.
No. I haven't actually added that up because we have Sauvignon Blanc. We have, there are so many vineyards and different ranches that we have now. To add it up by varietal, I know that certain vineyards we split. We put Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay on the one vineyard site. So it's a mix, kind of.
Great.
So this Chardonnay comes in, and what we do is we pick it really cold and bring it in, and we whole cluster press the wine. So it's nice and cold. It retains the natural acidity. So cold pressing it, we go to tank with the juice, and the free run and the press juice gets separated in 2 different tanks. We cold settle that a Chardonnay juice for 24 hours, 48 hours, and then after that we rack it to a new tank, add the yeast and nutrients, and then we go to barrel. And we have 100% barrel fermentation on this wine. It's about 40% new French oak, which I think is a really unique story that I want to tell you about.
Please do.
Because Don Carano went to Burgundy years ago, 30 years ago, and met a gentleman going through Burgundy and asked the gentleman, what kind of barrels do you get? What's your profile? How do you get, just tell me about your winemaking, because he loved the wine. So he met this gentleman, and the gentleman's like, well, you want to know about the oak? I'll take you to the cooperage. So they literally got in a car, drove down the road, and they went to meet Claude Gillet. And it's a cooper that we've been buying barrels from for 30 years, and it's a wonderful cooper. And what I get in the nose, and it's very consistent with our Chardonnays, is more of a graham cracker and a hazelnut kind of characteristic, a little caramel that comes through on the oak. I don't know if you get that, but it's kind of like a signature aroma that comes through on the oak every year. And I love it because it's what makes our wine very consistent. Our Reserve Chardonnay is that it's the same vineyard in Napa Reserve, and we make this wine very similar. I mean, you change it a little bit based on Mother Nature, but you're always striving to make a consistent product and using the same oak. And so I think in the end, in the end, it works out to be a consistent product. So the 12 that we're going into the 13, it'll be very similar.
Wine Julia, one of our bloggers tuning in, wants to know how old the clones are that you were talking about, the Chardonnay.
So this is our vineyard site is 20 years old at this point. The wine clone is the Wente clone that's been on the market for quite some time. You can buy it, but you also get selections. So there's a lot of different Wente clones out there, or selections. So it's the vineyard that we have is 20 years old.
This is beautiful.
So what I like about this wine is because it's an older vineyard, I think that the clusters tend to be smaller, and I think that there's more weight and structure. It's a richer Chardonnay. Mm-hmm. I think our Reserve Chardonnay is a bigger, richer Chardonnay. It has the more oak. It's got 40% the new French oak, but it also has 100% malolactic. It's not over the top buttery. There is that touch of that caramel and the butter that comes through. So it's just that richer. And I think it's a nice Chardonnay through the holidays. And I just think with a nice dinner and you have, your turkey and Reserve Chardonnay, I think it's a nice pairing. I love it.
I was just going to ask our bloggers tuning in what aromas you're getting out of this wine, but also what food ideas you're getting, because the minute that this hits my mouth, it has such acidity that I'm really thinking about food, and that is what I think sets it apart from some other Chardonnays. It has all the classic California trappings, but it's got such a good acid backbone.
And I think that's the San Pablo Bay and the cool area that's right by the Bay Area that comes through in Napa that retains that natural malic acid that always tends to be a little bit higher, and I think that's what's beautiful. It's got weight, it's got structure, it's got the acid. It's nice aging. I love this wine as it ages too. It's just it gets a little bit more just that butterscotch and that creamy caramel, which is nice.
What's the ideal age range for you on this wine? How long can you drink it for?
I like younger wines. For me, I think white wines, Chardonnay. I don't like Chardonnays past 5 years. I just don't, just because I like more of the vibrancy on the fruit to come through in general. So I'm more of a younger Chardonnay drinker.
There's nothing like the kind of fresh mouth-watering quality that you can get in youth. I think it's really impressive when you have a white wine that ages well, but also it's hard to just want to even set it down for that long.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that.
But it's fun to have an older Chardonnay when I've pulled it and you're like, oh, I forgot that in my cellar. And then you pull it out and you're like, wow, it's tasting good. And I think this with that and, the acidity, it could be one of those wines that definitely can't age longer than other Chardonnays.
I feel like it's the type of wine that tastes young for a little while.
Yeah. Not
too young, but young in a good, vibrant, fresh sense. So we have a question from James Melendez, James the wine guy. He would like to know what the distinguishing characters are between the Reserve Chardonnay and the non-Reserve Chardonnay that you make.
Okay. The non-Reserve Chardonnay is a blend of multiple vineyards of Chardonnay that we have. It has the original Chardonnay vineyard that Dawn and Rhonda's house is on. So it's kind of neat because I always love that. I always go to the home ranch to check on the vineyard, and I'll bump into Don walking through the vineyard, and he does these morning walks, and he'll tell me what he thinks of the grapes. He's like, nope, it's not ready, won't eat them. And he's like, nope, it's not ready, it's too tart. So it's really cute to have him. So the Sonoma County actually has multiple ranches, multiple clones, and not a single vineyard, where the Reserve is really a single vineyard Chardonnay with one clone. There are other clones on the ranch, but it's mainly the Winery Lake clone. There, I do sprinkle in a little bit of the other clones on the Carnaros Ranch, but it's really block 1 and 2 that are just beautiful, that I really like. So.
And what, between the two wines, what are you doing in the winery that makes them different too, I'm wondering?
I think that they You have different clones that are very different, because there are other clones of Chardonnay that are out there that have floral clones like the 809 and the Spring Mountain and the Muscati clones of Chardonnay. There's more lemon and citrus and apple kind of characters that are really different. So that whole mix of all the clones plays a different part on the weight and the structure of the wine. And so you're always kind of playing with the wine to make it consistent in the wine. And I think one of the differences on the Sonoma County is that it's less oak, so it's a little bit more fruit forward, and a lot more of those fruit characteristics of the clones come out. So it's a little bit lighter, but it's also, fruitier for some people who, this reserve might be a little heavy or richer or too rich. But some people love this. I love I think they're both have their place for food and people who like Chardonnay.
This one to me is, like you were saying, it's screaming holiday because it does have that weight. It's got enough of a brightness and kind of a mouth-watering character that it makes me want food, but it does have that opulence where the food that I want is kind of like roasted caramelized vegetables or poultry. I think would hold up really well with this. So it is one of the ones that I just feel like maybe more than the Sonoma even.
It's a higher priced Chardonnay for us, so I think it's more of a special Chardonnay, and I think that a lot of people love it for the special occasions when you have family and when you have your boss and your friends over. It's a really nice wine to have for the holidays and cocktail parties and things like that. So
I would say that this balances perfectly. This appeals to the drinker who loves Chardonnay and loves that classic California richness, and then to someone who maybe doesn't know the grape as well or doesn't know what they think of it. It's just all of the pieces are just fall in line really, really well. And if you do have the right food with it, then you have that sort of transcendent food pairing experience.
Yeah, I love that.
What do you eat with this yourself?
I've had this with all kinds of dishes. I mean, I think that I've had it with a lot of lobster and some pastas and risottos. Some of them are just blow me away. Some lobster bisque, a lot of shellfish and poultry like chicken, and I mean even the turkey at Thanksgiving. This would be so nice with all mashed potatoes and the sweet potatoes and all that stuff. I think it'd be really nice. So.
Wonderful. We have a couple more questions here. Wine Compass would like to know, on average, how long does fermentation take in a barrel?
Usually takes about a week to 10 days. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and every vintage is a little bit different on the nutrients. And some fermentations take longer. Sometimes they go a little fast, but usually it's about 10 to 2 weeks. After that, what we do is the wine goes through a malolactic fermentation, and that takes anywhere for another 2 more weeks to a month, depending on how cold the cellar gets. The bacteria kind of like a warmer temperature, so if it gets really cold in the cellar and we get early frost, the cellar gets colder and the malolactic fermentation takes a little bit longer. Once that happens, we add the SO2 and we top all the barrels up. And then what we do is we stir the barrels every 2 weeks, and we stir the lees in the barrels. And what that's doing, stirring the lees aging, is it's hopefully breaking open the yeast and all the fatty acids and manoproteins and glycerol are coming out of the yeast, giving you more weight and structure and body to the wine. So we do that up until 10 months, until summer of the following year. And then we kind of assemble the blend. We blend the wine in June, and then we put, so we take it out of barrel, we blend, whatever barrels we want, because we do actually blend per barrel, and we kind of taste through each barrel and each block 1, block 2, the different barrel, the different toasting, because Claude Gelée actually has different forest and different toastings, so we kind of go through each of those and decide what makes the blend. So once it's blended, then we put it back to neutral oak barrels until after harvest, and come January, and we'll bottle it in January the following year. So,
great. Wine Julia also wanted to know whether using older oak barrels is a signature style for your winemaking.
Absolutely, we do use older oak barrels in everything that we do. So this is 40% new French oak. It's actually 50% on this one vintage. It's been anywhere from 40 to 50% because I think the older the clone, the bigger the structure, the richer the wine, we can handle a little bit more oak. And then after that, you do like 25% 1-year-old oak, and then another 25% 2-year-old oak. So it's always a blend about of 3 years.
Great. I think we should get started on our red. We've got a lot of wines to taste, and we've got a lot of questions rolling in.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to chat more about these wines. We'd love to hear from you guys what you thought of the Chardonnay and what food is coming to your mind, as we said. And if you would like to get out the Pinot Noir, this is Anderson Valley 2013 Pinot Noir, which is what we're going to be opening next.
Okay, so in 2006, Don Carano and Rhonda Carano purchased a vineyard in Anderson Valley, and it was called the Sky High Ranch at the time. And it's a vineyard that is in the Greenwood Ridge Hills in Anderson Valley, where it's 1,600 feet in elevation and 6 miles from the ocean. And it's a vineyard site that, you talk about those moments where you just like tasting a wine and you get the oh my God. This is a vineyard that takes my breath away every time I go there, because it really takes your breath away on how high the elevations is and how beautiful the site is. And the Pinot Noir clones are like hand grenades. They're tiny. And the intensity of the fruit is gorgeous. So that's one of the vineyards. There's 2 other vineyard sites that go into this blend. One is in Boonville, which is up in the hills about 1,400 feet in elevation, and beautiful characteristics out of that. I think what I love about the Boonville Ranch is it's called our Middle Ridge Ranch, and it's got more of a cherry characteristic, which I love. Where Sky High is a ranch that has more blueberry and acai kind of characteristics. And the last vineyard that goes into this wine is our Lazy Creek Ranch, and it is a beautiful. It's where the wines are made, and it's where the winery is actually at, and it actually has vineyards. And all of the 3 ranches go into this blend. The Lazy Creek Vineyard more has like a floral and a pretty exotic spice that comes through, and some more structure and tannin, but it's a lower elevation, and it's in the very deep end of Anderson Valley, close to Rotorua into the coast. So each of those 3 ranches are amazingly different, but when you put the wine together, it's like, to me, a mixed berries. It's got pomegranate, it's got cherries, it's got strawberries, it's got blueberries, acai. It's a beautiful wine that comes together. So.
Well, I'm dying to taste it, and it's
so yeah. So that's it. But we bring in the fruit. We do a traditional Pinot Noir winemaking where you do the 3-day cold soak on the wine, and then you start with the yeast additions, and then when you add the yeast, then you do anywhere from 1 to 3 punch downs a day. And then once the fermentation is done, you drain and press the wine, and you put it to barrel, and you do malolactic in barrel, and then you barrel age it for a year. So the Pinot will be bottled the following summer, and then get ready for the next vintage. So
great.
It's a 1-year cycle. So
do you have a machine that does punch downs, or do you have people do punch downs?
We do both. We have the little automatic.
There's your Ironman training.
And it's wonderful. But then there's always, it's amazing because the vineyards, there are always little tiny small blocks of the clone. Okay, that little swan, it's ripening over here, but the rest of the swan vineyard isn't quite ready. So let's pick that little bit and we'll put it in a macro bin, which is like a 1/2 ton macro bin, which is tiny. And you do hand punch downs, which is my favorite day. I love doing it.
This is a ton sounds like a lot, but this is like a large plastic container in which you're fermenting some of the grapes, and it is maybe like 3 or 4 feet long and maybe 5 feet deep.
Yeah.
So as opposed to like a much larger tank that would have a machine.
In some way. Yeah, 2 bathtubs.
We've got a couple more questions, so
okay.
I'm going to ask 1 or 2 questions that go back just a little bit. Jolene's Patter wants to know what characteristics the Sur Lie process adds to that Chardonnay that we tasted.
I think it adds to the richness and the roundness of the wine. I think that's the biggest thing, is that the wines tend to be a little tight right after fermentation, and there's always residual CO2 from the primary and the secondary, which is the yeast and the malolactic. So there's always this residual CO2, and when you stir the wine and you add mixing the wine, it tends to release the natural CO2 in the wine, and it also adds little oxygen. You do get a little bit in there, but it's also part of the aging process of that 1 year cycle of adding the roundness and richness to the wine.
That makes sense. So let's just smell this Pinot before we move on.
Okay. What do you get?
Oh my goodness. There's a really beautiful kind of the fruit character in it. It's very red fruit for me, and it's also not underripe, but it's like barely ripe. It's so fresh. It smells like if you're actually walking out into like almost I would say it's a little darker than like a strawberry field, but like maybe
like
a raspberry.
Pomegranate, or that's a cranberry or a pomegranate. There's that cherry, but it's like a mix of berries which I love about it.
And I even get a hint of like a cinnamon spice, not like a vanilla like baking spice as strong that's there, but it's kind of the underlayer. I'm getting like something that I think is coming from the grape itself, and it's just that little like sort of prick of a zest.
It's like almost like a rose cinnamon, but a cola kind of character. I don't know if you've had like the cola.
I get that a lot on California Pinot Noirs, kind of like a cherry cola, which is that sort of compound of the cherry fruit, but then also that cola.
So this wine has about 40% new French oak, but it's really the oak that it's not the gelée oak on this. It is a mixed bag of coopers that we buy all through Burgundy barrels, and it's what we're trying to do is buy barrels that are really more in the background. It's not like overly oaky, it's not toasty, it's not in your face with wood. It's more of a structure and vanilla and like a little bit more nutmeg in the background and cinnamon.
Nutmeg is spot on.
So those are the aromas, but it's not, to me, the first thing is fruit. It's really a fruit forward wine where the oak is just in the background.
But underneath the fruit and then that layer of spice, I would say the third thing that I get is like a wet stone character, which is really, as in W-E-T wet, not wet stone. But I love it. It's almost like a little bit of like a rain on asphalt sort of thing for me, which visually gives me a picture that I associate with fall and winter.
Yeah, and I think it's if you taste the wine, I think there's nice acidity on this wine as well because of how close we are to the Pacific Ocean. And to me, some of our vineyards that we have in the Pinot they're very extreme sites, and they're not that warm. They're really high elevation and cooler climate Pinots that tend to have the natural acidity and brightness to the wine, which I think this is going to be a beautiful wine to age, but it's also a beautiful wine to have with food because of the acidity and the brightness to it.
And I'm just thinking how many of the descriptors that we just named that are literally food items that you have on your Thanksgiving table. You talked about cranberry. You've got your cranberry sauce on the table. You talked about nutmeg. How many times do you use nutmeg in your sweet potato dishes and throughout your meal?
Complimentary,
Definitely the exact spices I think that are coming out of this wine for me, and the fruit aromas are things that just take me to Thanksgiving, take me to Christmas.
But it's a nice wine also, not just for a holiday, but it's like a night by the fire with a game night, or a movie, or it's a nice Pinot Noir that you can drink this. I think I like it.
It's a wine enough wine that I think of it as a great wine for summer too. It's a year-round wine, but when I think of Thanksgiving, this one comes to memory.
Yeah. I think it'd be good.
We've got lots of complimentary
Questions?
thoughts on this, and we do have questions. Wine Compass would like to know, is Anderson Valley or Mendocino County known for Pinot Noir?
Oh, absolutely. I think more so, there is really in California. Well, there's more, but I think in Sonoma County. Well, it's even Napa. Coming from Sonoma County is where the winery is. I think of Russian River Valley, and for Mendocino, which is north of us, they're just very different types of Pinot. I think there's just more structure in tannin, and I think a little bit more darker fruit characteristics that come from Anderson Valley. I think definitely the tannins, believe it or not, are more prevalent in the Anderson Valley than Russian River for me.
Interesting. We're getting great comments. Fiery
Really?
01 Red, who is Michelle Williams, Rockin' Red blog, says that she's not getting cola, but she is definitely getting the baking spices, the roses, and the red fruit, and she says a touch of thyme.
Okay.
So yeah, really interesting.
I think that's the elevation at one of the ranches is surrounded by conifers and some of the trees. So I have gotten some of that. It's almost like a thyme or a sage or an underlying forest floor characteristic that comes from these sites that you can't. That it comes through in the wine. Yeah. So
and then Art Predator says more clove than cinnamon for her. And clove is another one that would come to my mind. And again, something that is right there, spicing your ham and other ingredients at the holidays. Jolene Patterson, who's local to Sonoma, says, rich aromas of black fruit. This wine is discreetly concentrated with silky tannins. I haven't even gotten to the tannins myself.
Oh, you haven't tasted it?
I haven't yet. I've been tasting it.
No, it's a wonderful wine. I think the weight, it's 100% Pinot, where it's just really what we tried to do is really show a wine. I know it's 3 different vineyards, but it's really an expression of the purity of the fruit from the vineyards is really what we wanted to capture.
You even telling me that there's 40% new oak on this comes as a surprise because it's so integrated.
Yeah, but it's what kind of toasting and what kind of barrels that we tried to, and we do taste every single barrel that goes into this wine, and we just say what goes in and what doesn't. So it's kind of neat.
So on the topic of tasting every barrel, I just wanted to say I asked Sarah today before our tasting about sort of what your day looks like, and I'll let you talk a little bit about that, how much you are tasting these wines and what that entails for you, given that the reds are made at a different winemaking facility with Rebecca.
So on a daily basis, I'll go through a lot of the white wines down here. So right now we just finished our harvest, and we're going through a lot of our Pinot Grigios and our Sauvignon Blancs and Chardonnays. We just started tasting through the Chardonnays, but they're not completely through ML, but we'll go through and we're just checking on them and how the harvest was, how it's evolving. Do we need to do anything to them? Do we need to adjust the acid?
And the whites are right here at this facility, which is the Dry Creek Valley Winery.
And our red wine facility is 20 minutes away. So once I'm done tasting through those whites, I get in my car, drive up to the red wine facility, and then I go through the Sangioveses and the Malbecs and go through the red wines that we had just made as well. So, and then I'm done by noon or 1, and then I get to eat lunch. But I love it. It's like my mornings are like wonderful of tasting through quite a bit of wines, and I don't know. I love my job.
And on Friday,
and then on Fridays, so that's Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays I tend to go out to the Pinot Noir facility, and on that Fridays I'll go through, because it's an hour away from the winery, so I'll make a special day. We'll go through a few of the wines, and we'll go through all of the wines at Sky High Ranch 1 week, and then all of the wines at Middle Ridge 1 week, and so that's my Friday. It's a nice Friday.
Yeah. Sounds like a great end to the week.
Yeah.
Travel Wine Chick says the Pinot is cool climate, darker fruit and baking spices, and she's also getting a bit of earthiness on it.
Okay.
And Jolene is saying that she can definitely see this Anderson Valley Pinot Noir paired with lamb.
Oh, yeah. Well, our next wine, I think, will be wonderful with lamb. So I think, the Tresor, which is coming up next. But, yeah.
Definitely the spices. I was just eating Greek food earlier this week and had a couple lamb dishes, and the spices on this match really well with something like a moussaka.
Oh yeah, I
or
did see that.
souvlaki.
I've had this with a lot of duck, and I love the Pinot with the duck and some of the sauces and with the risotto and mushrooms.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
So, what I guess, what did I want to ask you? Oh, we got a question about, I thought this was a perfect time to talk about case production on the specific wines, because I think when you're just tasting one bottle at home, maybe you don't know what it means when you say you're tasting every barrel of these wines. How many barrels are we talking? How many cases are we talking?
I think, the Reserve Chardonnay is a single vineyard, and we'll taste, there's it's a ranch where it's a few thousand cases, so we are tasting through a barrel to barrel. The Pinot, though, it's very small. I think we, it's interesting with Pinot. All three ranches have different clones on each ranch, and Pinot Noir clones are fabulous, where you have, more of the cherry, the strawberry ones, and then the black currant ones, and then the blueberry ones. And so you're tasting each clone in different barrels, and especially with it being a little bit more mixed up with the barrel cooperages, and you just kind of go through them, and I don't even know exactly how many barrels it is. What we normally do is 30 wines a day, and those 30 wines are individual barrels. So, and then when we come to the blend, we put it together based on how many barrels are in each vineyard block and how it all comes together. So, I know it's that. Does that answer your question in a way that? It's fun. I think that it's amazing how you can take a barrel that's come from the same forest from different people who made it. So say you have a Vosges barrel from XYZ barrel cooperage and another one from ABC wine cooperage. Completely different based on how they toast it, how they season it, how they age the wood, how long the temperature is, how hot the fire is, how do they bend the barrels. And based on that, you can really have barrel characteristics that come through strong barrel, too much toasting, or less. And so by tasting individual barrels, maybe the guy fell asleep toasting and it got too toasty, and you kick it out of the blend because it's too toasty, and that's not what we want. So
when I worked at a winery myself, one of the most memorable experiences I had learning-wise was tasting the same Chardonnay from different barrels. They had a few different coopers that they were using, and I understand exactly what you mean when you talk about Goulet having this particular style that matches the sort of tenor of your Chardonnay vines. Mm-hmm. You can taste the same grape in different barrels, and it will be a totally different experience. Yeah. The wine's totally different.
And then you could take the same vineyard and put it into 5 different barrels, and you have 5 different wines based on just that barrel. And that's fun, because sometimes it's interesting how some fruit works well with the tannins of that one barrel, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes, depending on the toasting, it can make a wine seem lighter on the palate if it's too toasty. But if it's not toasted enough, it gets too aggressive with the tannins and gets too almost like a raw oak. So you really have to taste them individually to say what is the best with the fruit and what you're trying to get in the wine finished product.
Wine Julie is wanting to know a little bit more. She said, wow, a Pinot Noir facility totally dedicated to just Pinot. Mm-hmm. She wants to know if you helped design the winery. So I think we need to explain a little bit more to everyone where we are, and then what the red winemaking facility is like. That one's not open to the public, mm-hmm. But it is at a gorgeous site.
Yeah.
And then Lazy Creek.
So this winery has been here since 1985, and we made all the wines here except the Pinot, because we didn't get into the Pinot until later. In 2004, we opened up the red wine facility, and the red wine facility is up in our hills, where all the red wine is, half of the red wine is grown in our hillside vineyard. So it was just easier to bring the fruit directly, and it's so close, instead of traveling the fruit to this winery. And it was also designed to be a winery that is so specific to red wine, to where it's like the sorting system is beautiful. It's like, it's like so gentle, and it was designed for a gravity flow with red wines. You want to be gentle. You don't want any harsh tannins to come out if you're being too rough with the fruit. So it was really designed to make the best red wines we could. And then Dawn and Rhonda bought Lazy Creek Winery in 2008.
Which already existed for many years.
It was one of the oldest oldest wineries in Anderson Valley, and they had been making Gewürztraminer and Pinot for years. They bought the winery, but one of the things that they realized is it was an aged winery, and so some of the things weren't quite working with the facility, with the drains, and so they ended up coming up with a plan on building a brand new winery, and it was absolutely beautiful because I think we really needed it. We needed better cooling on our tanks. We needed just to make a really good Pinot. You want it to be really clean. You want it to be, the cooling and the glycol, making sure that the temperatures don't go too crazy, because you don't want it. If you do have a too hot of a fermentation, you get more tannins and structure and bitterness that comes through, and so that's not what we want on Pinot.
And so Lazy Creek, just to add to this, Lazy Creek Vineyards, they have their winemaker, Christy Ackerman, and Sarah oversees and works with her on the Lazy Creek wines. They make, I think, 5,500 cases or so total. It's a pretty small output under the Lazy Creek label. And all of their wines, they do a rosé of Pinot Noir. They do kind of an entry-level, somewhat distributed winery, Pinot Noir called Lazy Day, sourced from 2 vineyards that they own. And then they do 2 single vineyard wines that are Pinot. And then they still do that Gewürztraminer. But in total, that's, 5,500 cases. And they have about 90 acres at that winery site. A little more, I think, right?
Okay.
So some of that vineyard is also making the Ferrari-Carano Pinots.
Yeah, so basically what's, all 3 of the ranches go to Lazy Creek, and all of the wine, all the Pinot Noir is made there. Lazy Day is actually all of the 3 vineyards.
Okay.
No, I know. Just because I want to make sure that Lazy Day is a nice wine, but it is wine. It is one of those, we choose the Pinots that have the lightest weight and this more simple strawberry, raspberry characteristics, where we want the richer characteristics to come through on here. But it's a really easy drinking Pinot. It's soft, it's elegant, it's a great Pinot Noir. So, but we really wanted to focus on really making a wine that's focused on the quality on that. So, but then we also make single vineyards out of each 3 ranches at Lazy Creek. So we have a single vineyard that is 100% from Middle Ridge, 100% from Lazy Creek, and 100% from Sky High Ranch. And they're beautiful. Oh my God, those are great.
Yeah, those ones are exciting to get your hands on.
So those are something that
well.
I know we don't distribute, those single vineyards, but it is something that you can get online and get it on our websites and purchase those, because those are really special as well.
And since we have that design question from Julia, I also just wanted to take a moment to touch on Rhonda's love of design, both in terms of the practical, functional sense. Another reason, to my understanding, that there was this deep renovation done at Lazy Creek a few years ago was to implement more sustainable, environmentally friendly elements, which are present at the winery here too. There are 1,900 total acres now of vineyard land owned and farmed by Ferrari-Carano, and the entirety of their vineyards, 24 different vineyards, are sustainably farmed, certified in California.
Steve Domenicali is amazing in what he does to protect the environment. Everything he does is really trying to promote and trying to use as little as possible in anything that happens. I mean, all organic if he can. He definitely goes organic if he can. It's just sometimes Mother Nature. You have to use something that's, sustainable and not too crazy. But it is something that it's an agricultural product that we're striving to protect our watershed and the salmon that comes through this area. Definitely.
Right. And you see another aspect of Rhonda's design when you come to this location, the winery, where you can taste that, because there are landscaped gardens. There's actually a tulip hotline in spring, so you can find out when the tulips are planted. Design comes through in both practical senses and beauty. And I really want us to taste this wine. We
Okay.
have to give Tresor some time. It is well deserving.
So this is our 2012 Tresor, and we've been making Tresor since 1988. So it is a wine that it's probably my favorite red wine that we make, at least because it's a wine that I think has amazing complexity. It's not 100% Cab. It's not, Merlot. It's a blend of our 5 Bordeaux varietals. So it's got the Cabernet Sauvignon as the main base, which is about 70%. And then it's got the Cab Franc, the Petit Verdot, Merlot, and Malbec. And those percentages always change depending on the year. I think they all kind of change depending on the year. If it's a high tannin year, we might use more Malbec or Merlot. If it's something that needs more structure, we might go with more Cab or Cab Franc. And so it's one of those wines that it's got the complexity of the varietals, those 5. All of the Cabernet, the Cab Franc and Petit Verdot are grown on our 2 hillside ranches that we have in Alexander Valley. And the Merlot and Malbec are grown in our Dry Creek lower elevation for the softer silkiness that comes through on the blend. But it's a great blend that comes in. We really, hand sort everything and try to get it as clean as possible in the vineyard to where it looks like absolutely blue marbles in the tank, and it looks like blue marbles.
I've seen those pictures. I think we posted some of those pictures maybe right before they came off the vine, but when we were talking about this on Twitter before this event happened.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular facility that it does look like a tank of blueberries in the tank, no stems, nothing, and, just sorting it like crazy. We do have stainless steel tanks as well as oak fermenters, so the oak fermentations are definitely different. They're rounder and softer on the tannins. And then, so we, do our punch overs and do what we do with the red wines, making sure they're not getting too hot in the fermentations, so you're not getting too much tannins. Managing the temperature on that to get the silky softness. This is a wine it's a Cabernet-based blend, so you are going to have the structure that comes through that is going to make this wine age 15, 20 years. It's a beautiful wine in the end. But it does go down once it's done fermenting. We press it and put it to barrel. It's about 40% New French oak and Hungarian oak and American oak. It's kind of like a mix, and it's one of those things about the cooperages. Every little area gives you a different nuance on the nose and structure.
So what are you getting out of this right now?
I'm getting more of a cassis kind of blackberry, almost like a cedar kind of licorice kind of character.
I'm definitely getting that cedar note.
But you've got that spice going through. You almost get like a mocha and kind of a plum.
I'm even getting almost like a hint of a mint oil or something. Maybe that little bit of eucalyptus on it.
I can see that. I know that we do have one vineyard on the Merlot has eucalyptus trees, and I've asked Steve Domenicali, which you got to cut those down, and he did. He cut all them because I think sometimes that eucalyptus trees, it's amazing how much will kind of carry through in the air. And the block 1 in this one vineyard was stronger than block 8. So I'm cut those down to lessen it. I like it sometimes because I think it is one of those things that adds a nuance. And I love this wine for the nuances. There's so many levels and I especially once it opens up, more aromas come out. And it's one of those wines with the different varietals that will come up and it'll open up even more.
Yeah, we just opened ours here in front of you, but in our notes when we invited our bloggers to participate, we said that we recommended opening it at least an hour before the tasting and perhaps decanting it. So if you've been tasting this throughout, if you've tasted it over the last hour or two, you can let us know how it's changed for you. And since you have 3 bottles at home, if you don't manage to finish all of them tonight, we're really curious to see what you think of this tomorrow. I think this is one of those that will continue to change over the next 24 hours. I did.
Because I like the tannins in the structure. It's not too tannic. This wine is really made to where we soften the tannins just enough to have a little bit more smoothness, but there is enough to age for years. 2012 was a beautiful vintage with riper fruit characters, and so it's nice to have that silkier, softer fruit that comes through.
When does this get released in proximity to the vintage? This comes out.
It just is getting released. I think it is released. So
The 12.
The 12 is released.
So we're dealing with
what's out there.
More than 3 years of
But it'll last. I mean, people buy it by the case, and they put it in their cellar, and they open one bottle a year, and it's something that we've been making it from from '88, and it's wonderful to have something you pull out 10 years down the road, and it's beautiful. And one of the things, one of my funnest days of blending this wine is we always, every time we come up with our decision, okay, this is it, I think we're there, we'll do the 10-year vertical, and we'll throw it in the line.
Oh, gosh.
And it's like my best day of doing a 10-year vertical of,
who wants to be here for that? Are we invited?
The whole idea of doing that is really, I think it's really important for people who love this wine, who come year after year after year to get this wine. It's important that we are consistent. We want to be. Mother Nature, it's hard to make a consistent product with Mother Nature, but there are things that we can do to kind of guide the wine to a stylistic wine that is consistent. And so I think that's why we do it, and I think it's very important.
Right. Makes sense. Wine Compass wants to know, is Cabernet Sauvignon always the dominant grape in the blend?
Yeah, it is.
So it's always that classic
cab-based. Yeah, I think it's varied from anywhere from 50 to 80%, but it's generally about 65-70% cab. So mainly 70 is really what we're striving for.
Can you tell me? I love this label. This label. The wine inside is amazing, and also I feel like the presentation of this with kind of the raised,
embossed bottle.
Yeah, the embossed bottle just makes it such an elegant gift presentation for me. Do you know the story of the label?
It's I know the story. It's a painting that is above Don Carano's desk in his office. So when he calls me into his office, I look up, and that's what I see. But it's a painting by an artist, and this is actually Laguna Beach. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a Laguna Beach, and there's the main hotel on Laguna Beach, and it's Marcus Sassone is the artist, and it's stunning. It's much bigger in his office. It's beautiful, and it's something that it's actually a sunset, even though it's it looks like it's on fire. I think it always looks like it's on fire.
Yeah.
But it's the sunset at Laguna Beach. So.
Wow, I've never asked that question, so that's news to me. It's really quite beautiful, and it also, even if it is a sunset and a beach scene, it does make me think of just like warmth and again that fireplace. Yeah. So I always think of it as a winter wine. Art Predator says that she loves tasting wine over a few days and that the Tresor will be fun if she can wait.
Oh.
We can relate to that. And along those same lines, Jolene said that the beauty of bigger wines is their ability to age, and that this has already evolved even in the hour that she's been tasting it.
And this, I must say that I've done dinners, this is such a beautiful wine with food. The lamb and the beef tenderloin, and it's just amazingly, it goes so well with food because there is a nice core of the fruit on the palate, and it's not too tannic, but it's just, I've had meals with this wine that those, oh my God, this is so good, and the pairings are beautiful.
I'm thinking also of like the richer, kind of darker beef type meats like brisket or oxtail even would be just really so savory, but then they have that almost natural sweetness to the meat itself that I feel like would go so well with the right fruit in this. And the fruit to me on this is just riper and more muscular than what you get off of the Pinot, where it's just kind of that like zing of just barely ripe, really fresh.
Yeah.
What can you say about just what happens when you open the wine and that process of it opening up over a few hours or even couple days?
What's
happening?
What's happening is, I think, just the oxygen is getting in the wine. It's releasing all the thiols and opening it up. It's actually, I think, softening the nose. It's also sometimes the wine needs to breathe. Do you know, it's that whole decanting process. There's something about as wine breathes with the oxygen, it's all those chemical equilibriums with oxygen that just releases, and I just love it. I love watching wines evolve in the glass.
Sometimes I just stick my nose in a glass and I just get like a color, and I just got like this beautiful violet, like vibrant, not even the fruit or not even the flower violet, but just like
it changes it, doesn't it? It just like, and then you get the nuance here and the nuance there, and it's great. I know Don Carano, he'll always he'll taste a wine for 3 days. I opened it, it's a little tight. Second day, love it. Third day, even better, because he really likes, and it's like what they do to see how the wine will age over time in like a little snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that as well at home. I call it my homework with my kids. They do their homework, I do my homework. And it's just seeing how the wines evolve over a few day period really is kind of, it just kind of sees how the wine will age maybe a year or two, So.
Great. I think we have time for about 2 more questions. We have one question, so I'll ask that. And if you have one last thing you want to ask, now's your chance. The hour has really flown by.
Wow.
Art Predator wants to know, she has a bottle of 2009 Tresor. She wants to know how much longer she should cellar it and how that vintage differed from 2012.
I think the 2009 is a beautiful vintage. I mean, compared to 10 and 11 that were cooler, 9 was a riper year, so you're going to get more of the riper characteristics and the darker characteristics in that lineup that we just tasted, the 12. I think the 2009 and the 2007 were my favorite of the lineup. Just beautiful vintages, and so you got time. If you want, if you hold on and you don't want to, if you have a special occasion or just feel like it's time, grab it and drink it. If not, it's got time to.
Can you buy, if you come to the tasting room, can you buy library vintages? I know we're in the library room. Are these all available?
These are all library wines that we do sell online as well. So if you do log on, and there is wines that you can buy, back vintages, and we'll ship them.
Love that.
So, yeah.
I'm someone who still lives in an apartment, so it's I get my library wines when they've been aged in beautiful conditions.
Like this.
Yeah, I can't wait to cellar, so it's always an afterthought. Well, I guess I will ask you for any closing thoughts. What are you doing this holiday season?
Oh, I'm actually going to Hawaii.
Oh.
Yeah. I haven't ever done that. It's something that I've always wanted to lay on the beach. It always gets kind of cold at the winery. I think it's funny because at the winery, through the summer and the harvest, it's really warm, and then in the winter, a wine cellar is actually quite cold. When you come to work and you're cold for so long, that I thought it would be really nice to take my kids to Hawaii and go to the Big Island and kind of enjoy the sand and the surf and the surfing Santas.
I was just going to say, I hope Santa knows where to find you.
Supposedly, surfing Santas are very popular on Christmas.
Great. That's awesome.
I'm looking forward to that.
Are you packing Ferrari-Carano for your trip?
No, I'm going for Mai Tais.
All right.
You gotta have Mai Tais when you're in Hawaii, right?
That makes sense. Yeah, that's perfect. It's a total just get out of the winter season and see something different before you come
And the
back.
pineapple that they have there, it's so fresh that they're just so good.
That pineapple in Hawaii when I was 9 is one of my most potent memories from childhood. Yeah.
And that's
Not
all
in my
about flavors
childhood.
and taste, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, well, that's why we're wine people. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that you will all enjoy these wines over the next couple of days and see how they develop.
Yeah.
And we hope you will be inspired to think about some food pairings with them. Maybe recommend them to some friends. I know that
something too, and got a little bit of history of the 3 wines that we presented. But they're beautiful wines. They're fun to make, and we actually love them quite a bit. So
I think that the reverence for the land and what the land can do to the grapes is so evident in these wines that it's like the enthusiasm that you have and that Rebecca has and Christy at Lazy Creek have really just is something that you can almost taste in the glass.
I hope so.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And of course, all of our bloggers at home. If you have more questions, you can absolutely tweet them. You can use the same hashtag. Also, any of the bloggers' followers or anybody else who came across this, please also join the conversation. And please, if you were just watching without the wines, thank you for your attention. And we hope that you will get your hands on them and taste now that you've learned about them in greater depth. So I think that... here's our last question here. Wine Julia wants to know, will the solid acidity always be a feature of the Chardonnay? She says she hopes.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because it's the vineyard. I don't move the vineyard. And the vineyard is right next to the San Pablo Bay. So unless our weather patterns change like crazy, it's still the fog comes in, and it is a cool climate in that area. So it's always been that way. It's always been a beautiful vineyard that expresses it. And because it's so cool, it has just so much more weight. So, and brightness from the acidity. So I think it'll stay.
And Jolene Patterson asked whether you have large format library wines available for the holidays. We can tell you that we definitely have the Prevail, which is...
We do have large format of the Tresor, which is wonderful. I think a lot of people go for the Magnum, which is 2 bottles. That's a really nice gift for the holidays. People love it. And when you have the big family get-togethers and the big, with family and friends, it's a perfect amount to share because sometimes there's not enough.
Great. Well, that is all the time that we have right now. So any other questions we will answer via email or Twitter. Again, thank you all for tuning in.
I hope you enjoy the wines. Thank you.
Enjoy your holidays and your winter.